welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. That is Nick Wright. We have a great show for you on a Wednesday morning. Deshaun Jackson, wants to stick with Fitzpatrick. We're going to start all over. Let's do it all over. We have a great show for you this morning. That's the Hall of Famer. That's Cris Carter. That's Nick Wright.
Yep.
Fantastic Wednesday for you. Deshaun Jackson wants to stick with Fitzmagic. Jerry Jones is getting excited about his defense. We are going to start, though, not with the drama in my mouth, but the drama in Pittsburgh.
It's always good to start with a little stutter.
Get it out of the way first.
Get
it out of the way
first. People can identify with that. People are brushing their teeth, getting ready for work.
Of goodness now.
They stuttering, too.
Exactly right.
All right, I think we can officially call it drama in Pittsburgh. Antonio Brown missed practice on Monday for unknown reasons. The same day he tweeted at a former team publicist that you could trade him and he'd still be great anywhere. Keep in mind, the team hasn't won a game yet, and Le'Veon Bell has still not shown up. One anonymous NFL assistant described the situation as a circus there, one that Mike Tomlin has no control of. Here's the head coach on the situation with AB.
Mike, was he here yesterday?
He was not. No, I'm looking forward to visiting with him today and discussing that and some other things. I'm not going to get into the details of why he wasn't here or whether he was excused and all of those things. I just as soon leave those things in-house. I understand sometimes you got some negativity. You know, we lost a football game. There was some negative exchanges on the sideline. There's frustration associated with not playing well and not winning. I understand all that.
Nick, let me start with you. I feel like we had a similar conversation last year at the start of this season when there was a lot of this sort of in-house and off-field drama that was going on. We're back at it again. What do you make of what's happening in Pittsburgh?
Well, I would consider what's going on right now, what's gone on since the tail end of last season, more significant than what happened at the beginning of last year. We had L. Bell skip a practice or a walkthrough leading up to a playoff game that they then lost. We have L. Bell still not with the football team, something that was not an issue at all last year, as he reported before week 1. And now we have Antonio Brown seemingly no showing for practice. I know his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, said he had a personal reason for not being there. Mike Tomlin didn't give a full answer, but it didn't really seem to me like that was an excused absence. If it were, I think Mike Tomlin would have said that there rather than I look forward to addressing it with him. So these are real things that can't be ignored. And to me, what we are now looking at with the Steelers is, are they letting what could have been and what could still be an excellent era of Steeler football, the Ben, Bell, Brown era, slip away from them? Because I think most people believe that L. Bell is gone after this year. All of a sudden, Antonio Brown, I don't want to say he's on tenuous ground with the team, but he has not, over the last 72 hours, improved his standing with the team. And Big Ben, obviously, is much closer to the end now than a few years ago. And I think all four of their major components, the quarterback, the wide receiver, the running back, and, of course, the head coach, have to shoulder some of this blame. Now, a 4-game winning streak will, I don't want to say cure everything, but will make everyone feel a lot better about where this team is. But this is a team that I thought was the best team in the AFC last year until Ryan Shazier got hurt. I thought had the ability to be one of, if not the best team in the AFC this year. And on or off the field, they're yet to demonstrate that this season.
Yeah, as far as a circus atmosphere, I know Mike Tomlin, know him fairly well, know some of the other assistant coaches there, know a lot of the players that play there. And this is not foreign to me, especially being a wide receiver. There were a lot of times on Monday after the game, depending on how the team did, sometimes even when we did well, if people could get some type of shot, myself or Randy Moss. I remember one time on the Monday night game against the Giants, Randy scored 3 touchdowns in the first half. And I was very demonstrative after the 3rd touchdown with him on the sideline. And people was like, man, Cris Carter's jealous of Randy. It's a circus atmosphere there. Dennis Green has no control. But I was actually just telling Randy Moss, when you are at your best, this is who you are, and this is what you should be doing. Now, how I conveyed that to him, I told him that he was robbing sports fans. Every day he doesn't play his best or give the best effort, you're robbing sports fans. I was very demonstrative. I was in his face. people had no clue what I was saying. They thought I was getting on it because Randy, on the third touchdown, he got called for unsportsmanlike conduct because he was so wide open that he backpedaled into the end zone the last 5 yards. But everyone came into the locker room. Denny Green don't have no control of this team. Chris Carter and Randy Moss, they're going at each other. But a lot of times, we, as fans, have no clue what people are talking about. We have no clue of what an NFL sideline is like on a Sunday. And when you're losing, because you're paid to win football games, there are a lot of people very, very upset. So I will not agree with the circus-type atmosphere. I will agree with Coach Mangini, and I have talked about a lot of time. They do have a different set of rules. Now, this set of rules allows them to at least win 8 games every year. So that's why you know it's not a circus. And Mike Tomlin has won double digits a whole bunch in his career. So I know what's going on in Pittsburgh. It's not the same locker room as everyone. Are they tight enough to be able to win a championship? Yes. In football, you can have situations like this. You got a lot of different people. You have a lot of different cliques. But it's easy because if you win, winning football cures a lot of different things. I think Mike Tomlin is still one of the best coaches that we have. And to think that he has a chaotic organization, which is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Because if Tomlin didn't have the support of the Steelers, if he was somewhere else, man, they'd be trying to get rid of Tomlin. If he was in Tampa Bay or something, they'd be like, it's chaotic, the organization, let's get rid of him. But because of Pittsburgh and their overall stability, I believe that the L. Bell thing, that's not the coach. That's the general manager and the ownership. They decided not to sign him. What's Mike Tomlin supposed to do?
Well, that is the part of this that I feel like sports fans and commentators absolutely leave out, which I understand the Steelers have a history, 50-plus years of being a well-run organization, and they have certain rules that they have always kept to. One of them is they do not include guaranteed money after 1 year for players that aren't quarterbacks. That's why AB's big deal he got only had $19 million guaranteed. That's why the offer to L. Bell, 4 years, $60 million, only had $15 million guaranteed. That's fine to be your philosophy. But with every choice anyone makes or any organization makes, there's potential consequences. And the Steelers' organizational choice to not want to be tied to L. Bell long-term, which might be the right choice, there are still consequences to it. And the consequence this year is he ain't there. And I don't know if that would have helped them beat the Chiefs. I think it would have helped them beat the Browns. But that's the choice the organization made. Mike Tomlin, in that regard, has been dealt something of an unfair hand because he would love to have L. Bell there, and it ain't his money. Like, he's not dealing with the cap. So that's something he has to deal with. That's none of his doing.
But are we blowing then the AB thing out of proportion? Is it not an issue at all?
AB not showing up for work.
AB not showing up for work. Maybe a tweet here and there. Earlier in the week, we heard about him threatening over social media a reporter who did some reporting on some things that he didn't want out there. But is that just all overblown? I mean, regular stuff that happens, but because he's the face or the second or third face of this franchise, we're making a big deal about it?
I mean, I don't think it's going to a reporter writing some type of article that said things about him that were not flattering. No, I could see a player doing that. No, not worried. Guy not being there on Monday. There's a bunch of guys on in the NFL not there on Monday. Either coaches tell me they tell you it's an excused absence, or they just tell you it's a personal matter or something family. But in the NFL, guys on occasion do miss on Monday. But because it's Pittsburgh, are we going to add to it? Probably. What he said on the sideline, we don't have no clue what he was talking about.
Oh, I don't think people are that, maybe I missed it. I don't think people are that concerned with the sideline.
Well, that's why we keep showing it.
Oh, because we don't have video of him not being there.
Well, then it's our job to tell people
Sure,
that.
absolutely. That's totally fair. I think the reason this is a story today is because he wasn't there yesterday.
And because Mike Tomlin seemingly wasn't aware and said, well, I'll address this with him when
it didn't seem like it was an
that.
excused absence.
Right.
Listen, when Coach Mangini says, and as Cris alluded to, different families have different rules, the Jacksonville Jaguars had a star player in Jalen Ramsey tweet some vague threat to a reporter. Their response was, we'll see you in a week. You are suspended for 1 week of the preseason. The Steelers had AB a couple weeks ago tweet some not-so-vague threat or a vague, I don't want to call it a threat because nobody actually thinks they're going to take them up.
Everyone thinks they're threatened. Anytime you say anything to them, everyone's threatened. Oh, you're threatened.
But but AB did the same thing, type of thing Jalen did, and that was addressed internally rather than a suspension or rather than any type of outward punishment. That is just different organizational and coaching staff philosophies. But this is where I think Mike Tomlin has to have the benefit of the doubt. And for some reason, people in Pittsburgh don't give it to him, and nationally, they don't give it to him. He's got the third most wins of any coach ever through 11 seasons. No coach ever has more 10-win seasons through 11 seasons. He's never been below 500. This is, sure, he's not Belichick. But other than Bill Belichick, his resume matches up to any other coach in the league. And that couldn't happen if he doesn't have a level of control in the locker room, even if it's a different type of control than other coaches would have themselves.
So then I asked this earlier, I'll ask it again. I guess we are sort of overblowing this because this is how the team functions and they know how to deal with it, and they somehow manage to win games despite whatever you want to call it, noise, distractions on the field, off the field. It doesn't seem to be a big deal to them. Should we even be making this a big deal?
We should be reporting on it. We should be talking about it. It's an individual thing as far as what big of a deal you're going to make. I know Mike Tomlin is a coach. I know what they do as an organization. To me, that's enough. Do I know the players? Yeah, I know Pouncey. Yeah, I know AB. Yeah, I know the players. I know the coaches involved. So, no, I'm not concerned because also I've been in the NFL locker room and I know anonymous sources. I don't know how you win all those 10 games in a circus atmosphere. No one else is doing it. Tell me somewhere else there's a circus atmosphere and they can win 10 games. Oh, it lets you know there's no circus atmosphere.
Right. All right, let's take a break. Coming up, could Ryan Fitzpatrick permanently replace Jameis Winston? His leading receiver hopes so. That's next on First Things First.
Bragging rights and huge cash prizes are up for grabs this weekend and all season long at DraftKings, the leader in one-week fantasy sports. How huge? We're talking over $2 million in total prizes. With 1 week fantasy at DraftKings, you choose when to play. Draft a new team every week with no season-long commitment. At DraftKings, you are the GM. Just choose your players, stay under the salary cap, and see how your team stacks up against the competition. No matter what your skill level is, there's a contest waiting for you at DraftKings. So, if you've been thinking about trying 1 week fantasy football, now is the time to play because nothing makes football Sunday more exciting than when you have a DraftKings lineup on the line. And you can play free with your first deposit to compete for your share of over $2 million in total prizes. Go to DraftKings.com and download the app today. Use code FIRST, F-I-R-S-T, to enter a contest for free this weekend with your first deposit and compete for your share of over $2 million in total prizes. That's code FIRST, only at DraftKings, the game inside the game. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.
Went on to the Magic in Tampa Bay. I know we're just 2 games into the season, but Ryan Fitzpatrick has statistically been the best quarterback in the NFL thus far. He has also led the Bucs to 2 wins over playoff teams from last year, with the Steelers up next. So what do you do when starter Jameis Winston returns? Wide receiver Deshaun Jackson says they should continue to ride with Fitz.
Playing on fire right now, and the way the team is rallying behind him and just playing, lights out football. You have to kind of honor it. You know what I'm saying? You can't take the hot man out. He got the hot fire right now. It's like NBA Jam. We used to play NBA Jam when we was younger. Whoever got that hot fire shot, you got to keep shooting, man. So, it's not my decision, but I'm sure they'll, Dirk and Coach Monken, them guys that makes them call, I'm sure they'll, let them stay on fire till, that fire's out. But I think we going to stay on fire, man. That's our job, to go out there and stay on fire, and that's what we're going to do.
I was thinking to myself, it's just like NBA Jam. Yeah. Back when I used to play it, it's the exact same thing. Does Deshaun Jackson have a point? You stick with the hot hand at this point, even though your number 1 starter's coming back?
If he keeps the fire, to use the analogy, then there's no question. If Ryan Fitzpatrick has a 3rd straight excellent game, whether they win or lose Monday night, then they're...
And it doesn't have to be 400 yards, 4 touchdowns
but if he has a 3rd straight excellent game, then 100% you stick with Ryan Fitzpatrick. I'll go a step further than Deshaun went. Even if he loses that fire hot hand, unless he has an awful game, unless it's like what we saw at the end of the season, actually, the year he had the Jets at 10-5, and has a game where multiple turnovers, including red zone turnovers, and he's the reason you lose, then I still think you stick with Ryan Fitzpatrick. And by the way, just because the NFL decided to take it easy on Jameis Winston to a degree with only a 3-game suspension does not mean the Tampa Bay Bucks have to. And it does not mean that they have to treat his suspension due to an alleged sexual assault the same way you treat an injury, which is guy, you don't lose a job due to injury. Well, sometimes you lose a job to suspension. Sometimes you lose your job permanently due to suspension. So for football reasons, and non-football reasons, unless Fitzpatrick has an awful game on Monday night, I think he's your Week 4 starter.
Now, one thing we should know, Jameis had a tremendous training camp. He's trying to make some adjustments. I'm in frequent contact with Derek Brooks, who's been mentoring of another Florida State graduate, NFL Hall of Famer, who's associated with the program and has done a lot of things with Jameis. So this is going to be a big year for Jameis regardless. We had these expectations on Tampa Bay and Jameis last year. All the experts said, Tampa Bay is going to be the team this year. A lot like we were talking about San Francisco. All right, before the season, that was Tampa last year. Now the offense, because of the weapons, and they're able to spread the ball around because of Fitzy, they've put up these unbelievable numbers. The numbers speak for themselves. And if Jameis, in his first 3 seasons as a starting quarterback, if he had separated himself, if he had questionable leadership, then we wouldn't be talking about Fitz. We'd be talking about a quarterback who was really hot, who was getting ready to go back to the bench. But no, Jameis came into this season with a lot of questions. Is he the face of the franchise moving forward? Is he a guy that you can actually trust with being the face of the franchise? Do you give him $100 million next year? So Fitzy serves a purpose being there. Is he going to be able to continue playing this way? Absolutely not. Just as quick as he threw 4 touchdowns, he can throw 4 interceptions, and Jameis is going to have to be ready. But as long as he's hot, they have to go with the hot hand. And to me, it's got to be week to week. And that's what Fitzy has proven. He has not proven you can give him a month. Say, we're going to give you another month, and then you can, whatever, regardless of what you do, no, because Fitzy can throw you out of the game the way he's thrown the ball very, very effective in these first 2 weeks.
What if he takes you a couple weeks into the season and now you're wondering, well, we got to see what we have in Jameis Winston if we got to make big financial decisions about him for our future, but we also have a guy who's a journeyman who may not be the face of the future with this organization. I mean, how do you reconcile both?
Marlo Stanfield, that'd be one of them good problems, but I don't anticipate they're going to be faced with the problem of, man, Fitzpatrick has rolled together 8 straight games where he hasn't lost us one. How are we going to get Jameis back in the lineup? That would be totally different than any stretch of football Ryan Fitzpatrick played at any point in his career. I think Ryan Fitzpatrick will open the door back up for Jameis Winston because, as you mentioned and as C alluded to, that contract decision is a major one. This is the last year of his rookie deal. Now, they have that 5th-year option. But because he was a top 10 pick, that 5th-year option for him is $21 million. And typically, if you like your quarterback, you don't let them play out their 5th-year option. This is the time they would get the long-term extension. Now, Jameis, because of the off-the-field stuff, not to mention the hot and cold nature of some of his on-the-field play, they might be able to put off that extension. Like, we need to see you play better and stay clean off the field. But it is still the major decision facing this franchise. We had the number 1 overall pick. We drafted a guy who got better statistically year 1 to year 2. Year 3 was something of a mixed bag, better rating, fewer touchdowns. Year 4 is the year that determines, are we in the quarterback market again, or do we have the guy that we thought we had when we drafted number 1 overall? I believe, my gut tells me at some point Jameis gets back on the field, and what will determine, I think if he is the guy, is can he recreate this downfield passing with Fitzpatrick and with Deshaun Jackson and Mike Evans that Fitzpatrick has created himself?
Yeah, I think the downfield passing is a small part of it because you don't get 400 yards passing in back-to-back weeks by just throwing deep passes. I mean, he has too many completions. He's made good reads. When he was in a bad play, he was able to get out of that bad play by either throwing the ball away, throwing to a check down, or a hot receiver. So in watching him play a couple times, I'm getting ready for the Saints game. So I saw how he carved up the Saints. I saw how when they left the middle of the field open, the same way Philadelphia did to start the game, he took advantage of it. So he wasn't playing conservative. I've seen something like this before, and that was when Randall Cunningham came out of retirement. Brad Johnson hurt his thumb, I think, early in the season, and Randall caught fire. And every show, every commentator was like, oh, he's going to come back down to earth. Randall Cunningham has never played this good. Can he sustain this? Everybody's like, no, there's no way. And Randall rolled that thing all the way through the regular season, being MVP, and rolled it into the playoffs till we made it to the NFC Championship game. So I have personally seen this before, who's someone who hadn't been able to do it for a long period of time. So do I think he's going to do it? It don't matter. He just got to do it for one more week. That's what he's on. You're on it week to week, Fitzy. This week's the Pittsburgh Steelers. Play the best football, give your team a chance to win. That defense is giving up an awful lot of points, too. So you can't just do it on winning games. How does the quarterback play? And does the quarterback put you in position to win?
And keep in mind the two teams that Ryan Fitzpatrick beat were the Saints and the Eagles. With the Steelers coming up, those are three very tough games to open the season. All right, take a break. Coming up, did everybody jump on the Deshaun Watson bandwagon a little too soon? That's next on First Things First. We've got two huge college football games Saturday on Fox. First, it's number 17 TCU taking on in-state rival Texas, and then it's number 18 Wisconsin battling Iowa in a Big Ten showdown on Fox and the Fox Sports app.
After a shaky first couple weeks for Texas, the big win over USC, if they can follow that up with a win over TCU, year two of Tom Herman right back on track.
All right, time now for us to go viral. We are only 2 weeks into the NFL season, but we have already seen numerous kickers struggle. But don't worry, Brutus Buckeye is here, drilling the 60-yard field goal with ease and a pumpkin on his head.
How is the best kicker?
Jenna, that's a Buckeye.
I understand that.
No, it's a Buckeye on his head, not a pumpkin.
No, it was a joke.
Oh,
I mean, like
okay.
doing something with a pumpkin on your head.
Okay, well, hold on.
People call it a walnut. People make all kind of jokes. It's a Buckeye. Mm-hmm. We're Buckeyes. It's not a pumpkin.
It's the actual thing on his head. Is a Buckeye. Right, I understand. Okay, maybe I didn't. Whatever.
See?
Just make your point.
Listen, this is a Buckeye tree. Chris Carter's got one. You got to be an All-American, get one. This is why it's so near and dear to his heart.
Yeah, there's not pumpkins growing from my tree.
So we're good with that?
Most importantly is this. How is the best kicker in the state of Ohio the Ohio State mascot instead of the kicker for the Browns? Can he leave now and go sign with them?
Man, Ohio has one professional team. It resides in Columbus.
Okay.
Stop, man.
Well, is he the kicker for the do you think that was the actual Ohio State kicker dressed up as Brutus? Because a 60-yard field goal, man.
The Browns, no, he'd rather stay in college. He don't want to be in pro.
Okay, it's better. Pay might be
Time for stories to start your morning, brought to you by the unexpected energy of ExxonMobil. The 76ers named Elton Brand their general manager yesterday. Brand had spent the last 2 years working in the Philly front office. CC, what do you make of this?
Well, first, I think this is one of the best jobs in all of sports. Where else are you going to have two superstars under the age of 26 years old, 25 years old, and you can work with them forever almost? Now in the NBA, it's about relationships. How do you develop your younger talent? And that's what Elton Brand did in the G League. And people say that the G League is far more complicated. You're going to start seeing more players with recognition like Brand as a player because they demand the respect of the players currently playing. So I like the move. Talking to Broussard and Kustok, our NBA experts, they like the move also.
And I understand people's initial skepticism. This guy's 2 years removed from being a player, and a lot of people didn't know about the G League experience. This also signifies to me Brett Brown is the most powerful person basketball-wise in that franchise. And for Brett Brown, it's great that the GM is someone he already had a relationship with rather than someone that might come in.
To be a lot like Magic Johnson, Pelinka. Pelinka wasn't working in basketball outside of doing contracts.
All right, to the NFL now. Jets and Browns square off on Thursday night. The Browns say they'll use pre-draft work on Sam Darnold to their advantage. They did do a lot of work on Darnold leading up to the draft before taking Baker Mayfield. See, can the Browns get an edge with their intel here?
When's the last time they won a game?
They won a game. Well, it was the tail end of the 2016 season.
Okay, so the Browns have plenty of information. Everybody in the NFL has the same information. You have the same information, same amount of time. It's what you do with the information. The Browns have shown me they don't do a lot with the information. So, no, during this, Sam Darnold's going to be on the field 65 plays. They have no advantage in scouting him. Absolutely not. It'd be just like all the other teams saying, oh, we're waiting on Baker Mayfield. We got a huge advantage because we scouted him. Stop it, people.
Well,
Stop.
Here's what Cleveland does have in their favor. This is far and away the weakest team they've played yet this season, and it's the first time they've been a favorite in Vegas in years. Like the Browns, if you want to bet the Browns this weekend, you have to lay points, which seems insane. I think the Browns, not this weekend, by the way, tomorrow night. I think the Browns will win tomorrow, get their first win in a couple seasons. I don't think a lot of it's going to be because of their pre-draft scouting on Darnold, though.
All right, moving on to the Texans quarterback, Deshaun Watson. He has struggled this season as Houston is still winless. One pro scout said Watson, quote, got anointed way too soon. What do you think, Nick? Is the scout right?
Listen, I think this anonymous scout might have gave this quote after week 1 or he didn't watch week 2. Deshaun Watson was not the problem in week 2. The defense and the coaching, the special teams was the problem in week 2. Deshaun Watson looked very much like 2017 Deshaun Watson in week 2. Week 1, he was really bad and he owned it. Anointed, yeah, if we're calling him league MVP favorite, that was anointing him too soon. If we're calling him one of the best young quarterbacks in football, that's not anointing him too soon.
I think they were too soon. That's why I told Nick he was going to definitely come back to the pack in year number 2. I thought he made some reads and some throws that he got away with. And as he went forward in his career, he would be penalized, throwing in the coverage. And I don't know how accurate he's going to be getting hit in the pocket. We need to see more of him. That's why I'm always slow to anoint all these young quarterbacks. We've seen guys in the league have a successful 6 games, even 2 or 3 seasons. But to do it for 5 to 8 years, oh, no, we anointed him too soon.
All right, finally, Russell Wilson was running for his life most of the first 2 games of the year, and now head coach Pete Carroll believes Russell Wilson is over-trying a little bit. Nick, what's Carroll trying to say here?
I'm not certain exactly what Pete Carroll's trying to say here. What I think he's trying to do is find a reason why this beginning of the season has gone the way it has, why Russell does not seem to be on the same page as coordinator Brian Schottenheimer. There's a very interesting exchange right before the pick 6 of Russell Wilson instantly checking out of a play, checking to a successful play, the next play instantly checking out of a play, and with 15 seconds on the play clock, Pete Carroll calls timeout after seeing Russell Wilson check out of a play, and they have a heated exchange on the sideline. The next play, he throws a pick 6. So Russell seems to be, I don't know if I want to call it freelancing, but wanting to run the offense that he is most comfortable with, and there seems to be a butting of the heads with Brian Schottenheimer. But what the Seahawks have to deal with that, to me, no team in recent memories has had to deal with, which is a star quarterback that you actively, knowingly went into a rebuild phase during the prime of his career. Like, that's what the Seahawks' choices were this offseason, and now you start 0-2. You look like one of the bottom third teams in the league, and that's a tough thing to swallow when the quarterback knows how good he is and the head coach knows how good the quarterback is.
Yeah, I don't think Seattle's rebuilding. If you put Bobby Wagner back on that team, if you put K.J. Wright back on the team, both of those guys, they're on the team. They're just hurt.
Injured.
If you put those linebackers back and you have them play 60 plays, that defense is going to be better. It's like baseball. You got to be strong up the middle. Those 2 linebackers and Earl Thomas back there is able to stabilize that young secondary. Offensively, when you don't have your number 1 offensive in Doug Baldwin outside of Russell, you don't have them. We know they had a shaky line. We know that they have a questionable running game. But if you add Doug Baldwin to that with Brandon Marshall and Lockett, no, they're not rebuilding. Russell is trying to do it because they don't have much talent. He is, but that's the same way Russell's played the last 4 years. If you watch him on the road, he turns the ball over more since 2016. There's only 4 quarterbacks thrown more interceptions than him on the road. So, yes, that's what he's doing because they don't have a lot of talent. He is trying hard, and on the road, it has led to some mistakes. As far as I'm not going to get into the play calling, I'm not going to get into him audibling because that's really hard to tell what the play was called, what he was actually trying to do. So I'm not going to get into that. That happens every game, every week in the NFL as far as what is a better play to run against this front. But Russell Wilson is one of the top 5 quarterbacks that we have in this league, and he is doing everything he can, battling injuries, an unprofessional offensive line for several years that they had. The last 2 years, they spent less resources on their offensive line, being money, than anyone else. So when you tell someone that, I'm going to put 5 guys in front of you, 2 of them didn't even play college football. How do you expect Russell to, remain cool in the pocket?
Well,
no, it's impossible.
The offensive line, I mean, we talked a lot about that last year. Through 2 games this year, he's being sacked at double the rate he was sacked last year. Last couple years, his sack percentage are just below 8%. This year, it's nearly 15% of his dropbacks he's being sacked. Like, we talked about the Giants and Eli, that Eli's got no shot with that offensive line. Russell, despite his athleticism, he is getting obliterated behind that offensive line, and that's not his fault. And that would lead to frustration, along with, as Cris astutely mentioned, not having Doug Baldwin for a team that keeps saying they're going to run the football but has yet to find. I know they draft Rashad Penny. We'll see what he turns into, but have not found a reliable running attack.
Yeah.
You don't have Doug Baldwin. If Tyler Lockett's your number 1 option, they lost Paul Richardson this offseason, that's going to be tough for any quarterback.
Quickly before we move on, has Russell Wilson earned the right to audible at the line to be able to change? He has, right?
He can do any. Yeah, I mean, he's one of the, he can do whatever he wants at the line of scrimmage. And I understand C's point, which is we didn't hear the interaction. It was odd to me to see a coach call timeout when his team's trailing in the 4th quarter with 15 seconds on the play clock. That's what jumped out to me about that.
All right, let's move on to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They have started the season 2-0 with wins over the Giants and the Patriots. With the Patriots struggling to get their offense right and the Steelers struggling to get players to show up, one anonymous NFL coordinator said that the Jaguars are the team to beat in the AFC. CC, are the Jags the most complete team in the AFC?
I mean, after 2 weeks, they have 1 win over New England. They have another good win against the Giants on the road. So it's just, I hate doing this. I hate because at 2 weeks, man, like, we don't know. We knew the Jags were going to be a good team. I didn't think they would go backwards. I'm concerned about their wide receivers. What's going on in Pittsburgh? New England's going to be a lot better in December. They just have a win over New England. So based on just this Sunday, that's the only thing I can say is, yeah, but is Blake Bortles going to throw for 300? No, I mean.
Well, is it fair to say, is it fair to say right now there is no complete team in the AFC? I mean, look, the Chiefs, they got no defense. Go ahead.
No year is a team complete. Even we saw New England. They've started the season 2-2, and they went right through everyone going through. There are no complete teams. That's the thing about the NFL. That's why you can have parity. Like, no year you can talk about a team. With our salary cap, there's no team that has ever been complete.
Well, okay, well, so I feel like you're using complete almost as placeholder for perfect. I'm not saying a perfect team, but I'll take 3 teams in the NFC.
Who has the least number of flaws should be the question.
Okay, sure.
There's no perfect football teams. There's no perfect sports teams. But which team has the least number of flaws that can be exploited by other teams?
And the point, go ahead, if you're
No, you can go ahead. That's just the question.
The point that, and if I'm answering that question league-wide, the first 3 teams that come to mind, to me, are all in the NFC. The Rams come to mind. Okay, what's their flaw? They don't have an edge rusher. The Vikings come to mind. What's their flaw? The interior of their offensive line. The Eagles come to mind. What's their flaw? Let's see what they look like when Wentz gets back and they have the wide receiver injuries. But those are minor tweaks. In the AFC, all of the good teams, to me, have at least one glaring hole. The Pats, it's skill position guys outside of Brady and Gronk. With the Steelers, it's for L. Bell's not there, and the defense has been bad since Shazier got hurt. For the Chiefs, who is their talent on defense? And for the Jags, it's what you said. It's Blake Bortles, and even if Bortles plays well, who is he passing to? That's the reason I think this is a tough question is I look at every team in the AFC that is a credible Super Bowl contender and say they have at least one glaring weakness. I don't feel that way about the best teams in the NFC right now.
Yeah, and I don't feel Jacksonville has a home field advantage. They don't have great crowd support, all right? They haven't won for a long period of time. And anytime you travel to a team, it was like Tony Dungy when he was trying to turn around Tampa Bay. We weren't afraid of them having home crowd advantage because they didn't have the crowd support, and we would love to play them in January. I'd love to go to Jacksonville and play them. New England would love to be able to do that. Now, New England has a home field advantage, not only because they play well in the weather, but they have the actual crowd. So you allow these quarterbacks in perfect conditions almost, a January evening in Jacksonville to be able to throw the football, that's going to help out the opposition. So when we talk about the teams moving forward, how can they get to the Super Bowl? These are things that I look at that I don't believe a lot of people are going to be looking at that. Pittsburgh, they do have a huge advantage playing at home. They're a cold weather team also, and the fan support. Those are the two teams in the AFC that only have that. Jacksonville, right now, less flaws than the other two.
Is it fair to say, because your point about the home field advantage, not just the crowd, but it sounds to me like you're talking about almost the style of team they are, that if they don't have home field, obviously they're going to have to go on the road in the playoff game. That ain't great. If they do have home field, they're a team that is built to be low-scoring defensive football. But if they have home field, it's not going to be cold in Jacksonville. It's not going to be awful weather in Jacksonville. That's not going to play to their advantage even as the home team.
They'll probably be facing a Hall of Fame quarterback in either Ben or Tom, and they're going to be hard to hold them in good conditions under 24 points. Yes, you would much rather have those guys, because of the weather, be challenged. Now, Jacksonville, do they have the type of players that would be able to do that? So they're just now forming. They don't know how to do this. I mean, we're no telling what Jalen might say the rest of the year. Like, we don't know how this team is going to respond in being in the limelight week in and week out. We saw Jalen in his first national interview with GQ. Everyone sucked. He sucks. He sucks. He ain't no good. He can't play. And even the guys that were great, he was like, he ain't bad. But, so we need to see with Jacksonville, how does the limelight look for them doing it week after week, day after day, and how they respond.
And see what people are saying about Blake Bortles a couple weeks from now. Blake's coming off the best game of his career. When Blake plays like that, sure, one of the most complete teams in the league. But we got a long sample size say Blake doesn't play like that often.
All right, we got to take a break. Coming up is Patrick Mahomes about to fall back down to earth. Next on First Things First. Back here, First Things First, former NFL head coach Eric Mangini joins the show. Hey, Coach.
Morning.
Good to have you.
Good to be here.
2 weeks into the season, and we've had some refreshing surprises already. The Bucs, they're good. The Dolphins, they're good. How about Chiefs' young quarterback Patrick Mahomes? He's been pretty good. Started the year about as well as a quarterback could, throwing 10 touchdowns, no picks, and 2 Chiefs wins. Steelers linebacker Bud Dupree admitted his team underestimated the intelligence of Mahomes, saying he was better than we thought, while Brett Favre said Mahomes' talent is as good as anyone in the league. All right, Coach, it's only been 2 games, but what is the key to Mahomes' early remarkable success?
Wait a second, Coach. Is Brett Favre breaking down all the quarterbacks or something, or is he trying to take care of Andy Reid, a guy that he knows and everything?
I'm sure Brett has his film set up. And
Come on,
studying
Coach. He's
hours
studying in
and
the basement down in Mississippi?
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe
okay.
not. With Patrick, I think one of the best things that he had going for him last year was Alex Smith. And Alex Smith, to me, is a great guy. He's a guy who had to learn the hard way in San Francisco. He's really developed a career for himself by the way that he studies, the way that he approaches things, the way that he's a pro. And to have that mentor last year was huge for him, was huge. And then you go into this season, he's got a ton of talent around him. You've got the start of the season where Kansas City historically starts fast. So all those things have come into play. We need to slow down on how good this guy is going to be, because every year it's the same thing. It's Jimmy G, he's going to the Hall of Fame. It's Carson Wentz, he's going to the Hall of Fame. It's Deshaun Watson, he's going to. Jameis Winston, his first year, goes to the.
Get packed.
It's packed. It's packed with all these young quarterbacks. But we're 2 games into it, and people haven't had a chance to really study who he is, what he does well, what he does poorly, what he struggles with, what pressures affect him. All those things are going to catch up to him, and then he's got to be able to show that he's got a second pitch when the defensive coordinators catch up to what his skill set is.
All right, so there's a lot of things that have played into how good he's been. I think Coach touched on one of it. I think sitting last year was great for him. I think
sitting with Alex.
Absolutely, that's the point you made. Sitting behind Alex, with Andy Reid there, with Matt Nagy there, who's now the head coach in Chicago. Like, all those things I think helped him out. I think Andy Reid, and he's always been a guy that has excellent offensive schemes. Having him as the head coach has been a huge advantage. The talent around him. Cris, you told Dante Culpepper when he took over for Randall and the Vikings, you're never going to have this much talent around you again.
No.
I hope you take advantage of it. I hope you appreciate it. Like, that is the level of...
Yeah, he ended up having 3 Hall of Famers. Left guard, Randall McDaniel, Randy Moss, and myself. Forget about Robert Smith and the other 2 Pro Bowl offensive linemen that we had.
Right.
That's a pretty good crew.
And if it's what you come into, you don't know that this is abnormal for the NFL. Like, it's the NFL, everyone must have this level of talent. So Pat Mahomes has super high-level talent. But the other part of that equation, the fourth part, is he has elite arm talent. That not for a rookie or a second-year player. He has the ability for him, the types of throws he's making. And the reason I think that his success is less fluky than some of the other success we've seen is if you watch the diversity of throws he's making to 7 guys on the team, I believe, have touchdown receptions all over the field. Like, defenses might figure a lot of things out, but some of these throws, there's no defense for. There's no defense for a perfectly placed, perfectly timed, high-velocity throw. And that's what a lot of these are. See, we looked at the highlights from week 2, and you broke down the throw to Kelsey did this, the throw up the sideline did that, throw to the running back did this. Like, of course he's not going to go 80 touchdowns, 0 picks. That's what he's on pace for. He's not going to do that. But it doesn't feel like this is a guy we're going to be like, oh, remember those 2 weeks from journeyman quarterback Patrick Mahomes when he lit the world on fire? I don't think it's that either.
No, but he does have good arm talent. If you look at, there's not 10 quarterbacks in the NFL that can throw the ball. If we were doing a horse competition, all right, he would be one of those throwers in there. A lot of times, does that equate to being the type of quarterback that's your franchise quarterback? What we've seen in the league is sometimes they don't go together. Now, he's got some good things working for him. He wasn't pressed into duty last season. You talk about the coordinator he was with last year. You talk about the head coach who he's with. You talk about all the talent. And I did think the number of throws that he's made has been very, very impressive. I think the most significant thing that happened for him, though, was the Alex Smith thing. And Andy Reid, in his press conference, he went into that. They asked him, well, what makes this young kid be able to play so well? And it's like, his sitting behind Alex Smith. And they said, well, Alex Smith, no. Alex opened up everything to him. Alex did not guard himself the way normal pros are. Like, I can have an association with you, a lot like Ben Roethlisberger told my man Mason Rudolph coming from Oklahoma State. That's the way NFL typically hierarchy goes. No one is going to give you the kind of secret to the secret sauce. When I got Randy Moss, I gave him everything. I'm a wide receiver. We were a 3-receiver offense, and I knew Moss couldn't replace me. I knew Moss couldn't do the things. So there was really no threat. So for me, I opened up everything to him, how to take care of your body, where he should live, all the things that would help him grow. He had that with Alex Smith, and I think that's probably the biggest component to his overall success is Alex opening up everything to him, that he's learned a lot of NFL lessons that other guys had to get into the game to be able to learn. And Andy Reid opened that up, and he told us that in the press conference, that if Mahomes hadn't sat behind Alex, and Alex was not a selfish guy, but also that's what led Andy Reid to trade him to a friendly place so that Alex could get a good contract. He saw what Alex meant to that franchise and what he meant to this young player's growth, and he said, you know something? I'm going to do you a solid. You did me a solid.
Alex got $90 million. It worked out great for everybody. It worked out perfectly for everyone involved.
So like I always try to tell you guys, it's always the right time to do the right thing. Alex Smith, he helped lead to the great legacy we have in NFL players teaching the game, because Alex Smith knows the game better than Andy Reid. Why? Because Andy's never played. Nagy's never played. So the communication to that player through that coach, we as players can tell those other players things that the coach can never, ever read. It's not out of disrespect. When you're trying to coach at the highest level, it's the blend of the highest information with people who have played, assimilating that information, and we see it played out, Coach, in Pat Mahomes.
It's huge to have a mentor that's willing to share their successes, their failures, their process, and someone like Alex Smith who struggled and who had to learn all those different things along the line. It's huge, because as a coach, you can only give them so much, and then the players help fill in those voids. The thing I'm struggling with this is the elite arm talent, the once-in-a-generational player, all these accolades that we give to guys after 1 or 2 games. And
more so now in this generation. We do it more so now than ever before.
And look, Tom Brady, He did not light it up when he first started. We scored 3 offensive touchdowns.
There was a couple Super Bowls, Coach, and we were still calling Tom Brady a game manager.
Yeah.
Oh, New England's going to win despite Tom Brady.
Hold on. Of course. Well, go ahead.
But I'm just saying, we want to anoint everybody as he's this, he's that. It's 2 games. Last year, Kansas City started out 5-0. They were definitely going to the Super Bowl. And what happened? Things changed dramatically. Let's see whether he can have sustained success.
But,
is it a nice start? Is it a nice story? It's great. It's exciting.
Coach, but sometimes you feel to me like a guy that if a spaceship landed on 6th Avenue, you'd say, let's see if it happens tomorrow before I get excited about it. This isn't a typical start. I'm not saying he's a once-in-a-generation player, but how long have you been playing NFL football, see?
99 seasons.
How many players have had more touchdown passes first 2 games of the year? Not young players, not rookies, not second-year players.
No,
total
but I've
players.
seen Scott Mitchell.
None. Yeah,
and I've seen some other guys, too, now.
Of course.
So Coach is right now.
And there's people that
We have 99 years of history, so you're using that.
No,
but we also have 99 years of history.
And there is the Tom Brady example. But there's also the Aaron Rodgers example of this. See, your first practice, or not your practice, his first practice after taking over for Brett Favre, you're on the field with Greg Jennings, some other people. And what's your story from there? This guy's got a special arm.
No, that's me, though.
Right.
No, that's me, and based on all the arms that I'd ever seen.
Of course.
Pat Mahomes don't have that kind of arm.
I'm not saying he has that type of arm. The point I'm making is some guys are Brady, a rose that takes a while to fully bloom. Some guys, the people know when they know. And I'm not saying he's Aaron Rodgers. I'm not saying he's a once-in-a-generation talent. What I am saying is all we can deal with is the data that we have. And the data that we have right now says he is far more likely to be a franchise high-level quarterback.
That's not the data for 99 years, though. What Coach is saying, we've been watching this for so long. You're just talking about recent data. But the history of the league shows, yeah, we've had guys have great starts, either at the beginning of their career or even in the middle part of their career. But we have also seen more of those spaceships turn out to be, that was inflatable. That was a blow-up.
Yeah, and some people think that the Earth is flat, and some people think the moon landing was fake. Like I want to see the data over time and be able to make an evaluation after people have been able to catch up with them, as opposed to 2 games and look, he's the best quarterback ever.
Coach and I come from the same theory. We'd much rather be slow to get to the party. And people say, I knew about this guy. So what? We much rather be slow and be right than be out before the story and try to put this out there on all players. Because we said the same thing about Deshaun Watson. I know coaches like, hey, listen, watch out now. This could go the other way.
But Jimmy Garoppolo, the only thing he had going for him was the win-loss record. The numbers weren't this. The visuals weren't this. Deshaun Watson, everyone knew, just like everyone knows that Patty Mahomes isn't going to go 80 touchdowns, 0 picks. Everyone knew Deshaun Watson wasn't going to continue the all-time record quarterback rating, touchdown-interception ratio, touchdowns per game. We knew those things. But you also early on can say, what do I think this player is going to be? Do I think this player is going to be a star in this league, an average player?
Did we not think Cam Newton would be a better football player today?
Yeah, but I don't think we were wrong about Cam. Cam also won an MVP and got his team to a Super Bowl, even if he has not achieved maximum of his potential.
What I find is a lot of people pick 15 guys they say are going to be great, and when one of them hits, it's like, look, I told you so. But nobody ever goes back to the other 14 that didn't quite get there.
If it was 1 out of 15, I think that'd be more fair. I don't think it's usually 1 out of 15.
Coach doesn't like accolades. Thanks for being the greatest coach of all time and the greatest suit of all time, Coach. We love it.
Thanks for being the greatest hostess.
Ever. Coach, stick around. So much more coming up. Do the Steelers officially have too much drama? Next on First Things First. Back here with Coach Mangini, and we are going viral. Ryan Fitzpatrick is having a career year, 2 games in, and showcasing why he has the Fitzmagic nickname 2 games in. But someone else is on his corner. Dolphins rookie safety Minkah Fitzpatrick has filed to trademark his high school nickname Fitzmagic. Coach, who deserves
heady play more? Minkah getting out in front of this. Heady play, Minkah.
I give it to Minkah for having the initiative to...
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
Nick Saban said that he's the best leader that he's ever coached. Adam Case said in Miami that if he wasn't a rookie, he'd be a team captain. So I know he's getting this and getting the rights to it, but I mean, you're talking about a serious football player. He's going to be a great. This is not no overreaction. He's going to be a great player. He can play corner, can play safety, can play nickel, is a tackler in the box. Good football player.
Fitzpatrick got the nickname from fans. Minkah got it from his mother. So I say he has proprietary rights, and he got to the patent office first. So good for him.
Yeah, the copyrights add value.
Absolutely.
All right, moving on to the drama
Fitz is going
in
to be on the
Pittsburgh.
bench. Ain't going to be no magic to that either. Sit right here, son. You a lot better over here next to the coach. Well, don't worry. I'm going to get you a hot dog and Coke after the game.
The team, the Steelers, have yet to win a game. The team's star running back, Bell, has yet to show up, and the team's star receiver, Antonio Brown, missed practice on Monday for unknown reasons. The same day, he tweeted that you could trade him and he'd still be great. An anonymous NFL assistant described the situation as a circus there, one that Mike Tomlin has, quote, no control over. Coach, what do you make of the state of the Steelers following Antonio Brown's Monday absence?
Yeah, I have very little time for the anonymous NFL assistant who's going to weigh in on somebody else's team unless that NFL assistant is there or has worked there recently. I mean, we don't know where this is coming from. Every family operates differently, and the Steelers operate differently than the family that I was a part of, but they've been able to make it work for a long time. Now, are they frustrated that they're losing? I'm sure they're frustrated that they're losing. You know, Antonio Brown, I don't know what he was saying on the sideline, but he was targeted 17 times. Could he have acted better and differently and in a way that was much more...
We know he wasn't saying throw me the football.
Yeah, I don't know what he could have targeted 17 times. That's pretty good. And they hang 37 points last week.
Yes.
So offensively, it's been productive. Obviously, the turnovers have been an issue. But the idea of Mike Tomlin not having any control just because people operate differently doesn't mean there's a fundamental lack of control. I've got a lot of respect for Mike Tomlin. Every interaction that I've ever had with him has been positive. I respect the things that he does, and look, he's transitioned some things in Pittsburgh. He's made some changes in Pittsburgh, and they moved on from Todd Haley, and Todd probably had Todd has a little bit of a volatile side, but maybe that worked in that family better than it's working right now as they find their way with a new coordinator.
I don't get the way Mike Tomlin is discussed. I just simply don't get it. Won a Super Bowl 2 years in, went back to a Super Bowl 2 years after that, has never been below 500, ever. So, go ahead, C.
I get it. Any African-American coach that has any volatile players on the sideline, this is the logo that they get.
Correct.
I was with Denny Green for 10 years. The same thing. Same thing, no matter how we won, lost, all the optics. Man, one time Denny grabbed me, and he was right for grabbing me because I was going off on someone. He was like, you realize right now there's 4 cameras on us. There's always 2 on me because I also look good. But he said, right now, people are saying, Denny Green don't have control of this team. Now, this is what I need you to do. I need you to go sit your butt down and act like you got some sense. But I need to tell you something first. I'm going to get rid of these sorry players as soon as I get a chance. So the only one out here more upset than you is me. Now, I need you to turn around, shake your head, and go sit down. I was like, yes, sir, coach. And I went right back over there, and we had an understanding. But Denny got on me plenty of times, and the optics after the game, win, lose, or draw, was exactly like what we hear coming out of Pittsburgh with Mike Tomlin.
And I'm glad you said it because, of course, that's an element to it. And it's a third rail, and people are afraid to do it. But to talk about it, I'll never forget this. I remember I used to cover, when I covered local teams, we'd go to the training camps. And when there would be training camps open to the public, the fans would never cheer for a great play as much as they would cheer when the coach would blow practice dead, start ripping into a guy, or they would get a standing ovation from the fans if the coach made everybody run. Because everyone remembers back when they played high school football and how they would coach and these spoiled people like it. Football fans like that type of coaching. That's not who Mike Tomlin is. He has the added lack of a benefit from a lot of the fans' perspective of being young and being black. And so things are out of control. He's too much, what you hear is these code words. He's too much of a player's coach. Whatever his style is, the only coach who hands down has been more successful than him in his tenure is Bill Belichick. And we talk about Bill Belichick as maybe the greatest coach ever. It's not his fault Bell's not there. What do you want him to tell Antonio Brown? If you tweet again, you're off the football team? Like, what do people want from Mike Tomlin other than to be someone who's not? He's very straightforward in press conferences. His players seem to really like him. I understand he's a different coach than Pete Carroll, who's a different coach than Matt Nagy, who's a different coach than Andy Reid. But none of those guys get the banging that Mike Tomlin does. I think it's
with
ridiculous.
all the stuff that came out of Seattle, why don't they say that about Pete Carroll? They got guys tweeting stuff. They got guys saying stuff. They got guys questioning offense coordinator. They got guys questioning, man, we lost the Super Bowl because of the coaching staff.
Because they conspiracy against
They
the
never
MVP.
say that about Pete Carroll. And they had a lot more things going on than the Pittsburgh Steelers coach.
I remember talking to Mike Tomlin when he first got the job, and he was very comfortable in his own skin. He was very comfortable in the things that he believed in, and that resonated. Look, there's going to be edgy players on teams, and there's going to be edgy players, more of a concentration on some teams than others. And Pittsburgh's always had a lot of those guys.
Yes.
And when you lose, those emotions come to the forefront. And when you lose, people are a lot more critical of every interaction that takes place on the sideline. There's a lot of things that are said on sidelines that nobody ever sees because of the way they're said, but they're harsh and they're confrontational. It just, some people have a way of just glossing it over a little bit better.
And there's some guys that when they yell on the sideline, it's leadership. And other guys, it's distraction. Brady lost his damn mind this weekend for about 15 seconds on the sideline, and we've seen Brady do it before, and that is Tom Brady leadership. I'm not saying Brady's the same guy as AB, but the way we color these interactions matters. Sean Payton got banished from football for a year because the Saints were running a bounty program, right? That he had 3 consecutive sub-500 seasons with Drew Brees healthy prior to last season. He doesn't catch 20% of what Mike Tomlin does.
But I think some of the backlash with the drama is that this window for the Steelers is closing. It's either closing this year or next year with these 3 stars, Roethlisberger and Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown. And nobody wants to see anything other than success or anything other than football. And you have to wonder, are you wasting this opportunity now with all this noise or whatever it is, or this in-house family drama, whatever you want to call it, and not focusing everything on taking advantage of these 3 guys?
I'll just say this. Mike Tomlin's the second best coach in Pittsburgh Steelers history. The one that's better than him is Chuck Noll. That's it. That's it in the franchise history. Now, people would debate, what about Bill Cowher? Check the numbers.
It's not even, yes.
Check the numbers to see what it says. So not only is Pittsburgh one of the great franchises, I'm talking about they are Mount Rushmore as far as the NFL is concerned. And for him to be able to continue that winning tradition, never having a losing season, now, I would just say it's impossible to have a circus atmosphere, coach, as long as he's been coaching, and to not have a losing season if that was the truth.
Yeah, you can't kill him for having that circus atmosphere and then say, wait a second, he's won every single season. Look, could things be different? Do people like looking at things in a different way? It's not for everybody. It doesn't work for everybody, but it has been working for them. Now, when you go into the season and you tie the Browns, there's expectations that you're going to beat them, and then you struggle in your second game, then there's more criticism. Now, if they get 1 or 2 wins here, start putting it together a little bit like they did last year, it'll all go back to normal.
And one of the things that can't be, when we talk about this era, because I make that point a lot, Jenna, that, listen, L. Bell got there, and that year they're 8-8. The next year, they make the wild card round. The year after the divisional round. The year after the AFC Championship game. And that leads us to last year, the team that I thought was going to win the Super Bowl last year. The Steelers have been a different football team since, tragically, Ryan Shazier was carted off that field. The offense been the same. But defensively, they went from allowing 17 points a game to 28 points a game. They went from allowing 50% of red zone drives to end in touchdowns, look at it, to 83% to end in touchdowns. They're giving them an extra 70 yards per game. Like, I can't put that on the head coach. They lost the best player on their defense, who was the leading candidate at that time for Defensive Player of the Year, and they have not been the same football team since then. You add to that L. Bell hasn't shown up. Those are the real reasons this might be a missed era. If Shazier doesn't get hurt, last year maybe goes totally differently. We're not having this discussion.
Well, in fairness, they've had a year to fix that problem.
Oh, absolutely, but that's not on Tomlin either. Right?
Well,
he's not their personnel director.
Okay, but as a head coach, you have a significant amount of impact on that.
It's like the lady who says, you know something, coach, I'm going to lose some weight. This is all baby fat. Well, where's the baby? The baby in college.
Great example.
Oh, the baby did a binky. What? Oh, the baby's going to graduate school.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.